The importance of human rights. A lot of people don't know enough about human rights and just how important they are. Basic human rights must be granted to everyone by law and are applicable everywhere and at any time. They can't be taken away, but they can be restricted if you do something such as breaking the law. Human rights are an important means of protection for us all, especially for those who face many life-changing problems such as abuse, neglect, isolation, and more. We understand that human rights can be tough to be educated on, but considering that they affect our day-to-day lives, it is something that we should all know about.
What are human rights? Well, human rights are the values which keep society fair, just and equal. They protect children, the elderly, people in care, victims of domestic violence, people with mental health problems, religious groups, teachers, soldiers, and yes, prisoners. They protect all of us. They protect you. Our human rights are protected by law. That means we can do something if our rights are attacked. But not everyone loves human rights. Some want to water them down, even scrap them. Our rights are under threat, so it's time to get educated. Societies used to be controlled by all-powerful rulers who could be horribly unjust. Kings only gave rights to people they liked. Over thousands of years, people fought for equality, and with every hard-won right came new laws that improved how we lived. But in the 20th century, brutal dictators came to power. They ruled by fear, like the kings of the past. Those hard-won rights, they were dismantled on an unimaginable scale. After World War II, the democracies got together and said, never again. They created a simple document setting out the basic rights we all need to live a dignified life. The European Convention puts rights, not rulers, at the heart of our society. Like the right to life, to liberty, to free speech. Then, in 1998, Parliament passed the Human Rights Act, which made our human rights part of UK law. This means public bodies like hospitals and schools must respect our rights, and if they don't, we can go to our local court to enforce them. Now, because of human rights, patients in hospitals must be treated with compassion. Journalists cannot be forced to reveal their sources. Soldiers must be given proper equipment. Gay people have to be treated equally, and the police cannot keep our DNA forever if we're innocent. We have to be treated fairly, at work, at home, in school, anywhere, everywhere. Our human rights are hard-won. They're part of our British heritage. We are proud of them. If we lose them, vulnerable people will pay the biggest price. Know your rights. Celebrate them. Protect them. Share this video if you think human rights matter. Go on. Share it.
Human rights are norms for certain standards of human behavior and are protected in municipal and international law. These rights are inherent to all human beings regardless of race, sex, nationality, ethnicity, language, religion, or any other status. The idea of human rights is said to come from the origins in ancient Greece and Rome, where it was tied to the doctrines of the Stoics, who said that human conduct should be judged according to the law of nature. Human rights comes from the fact that we are not only physical beings, but moral and spiritual human beings as well. They are needed to protect every individual's humanity to make sure that every individual can live a life that is worthy of a human being.
There are 30 basic human rights that are recognized around the world, and they include: we are all born free and equal, don't discriminate, the right to no life, no slavery, no torture, you have rights no matter where you go, we're all equal before the law, your human rights are protected by law, no unfair detainment, the right to trial, we are always innocent until proven guilty, the right to privacy, freedom to move, the right to seek a safe place to live, and right to nationality.
Marriage and family, the right to your own things, freedom of thought, freedom of expression, the right to public assembly, the right to democracy, social security, workers' rights, the right to play, food and shelter for all, the right to education, copyright, a fair and free world, responsibility, and no one can take away your human rights.
These rights are universal because every individual is born with and possesses the same rights. They apply to all of us equally, and we all have the right to participate in decisions that can and will affect our lives.
A world without basic human rights would be a world full of hatred and injustice. One of the basic human rights states that we all are entitled to a fair and free world. Unfortunately, this is still a problem for many people, especially women. As two young women, we have experienced many situations that we would consider unfair to us, and we believe that all women would be able to relate to our experiences.
One of our worst experiences happened when we were walking downtown Fredericton in the middle of the day, and two scruffy-looking men decided to stop us. One of the men, who was in his 40s, had the nerve to ask us, "How are you today?" in a flirty tone while looking us up and down. When I replied, "Good," in a rude tone without making eye contact. His friend proceeded to say, "Ouch, that must have hurt," which hinted that his friend was trying to hit on us. We wouldn't have such a big problem with this if we felt like they were just trying to be friendly, but we knew from the way that they looked at us that their intentions were not appropriate. This is an issue that men will never understand. The fact that we can't even walk alone in the middle of the day without fearing that we will be sexualized is something that needs to be changed immediately. We are positive that we are not the only women who experience stuff like this, and we feel as though that it is not talked about nearly enough.
Another situation that we have both experienced has to do with sports. One of the basic human rights is don't discriminate, and in this situation we were discriminated for our gender. When we both played volleyball together, we had an encounter with a couple of boys from another team. The girls' net in volleyball is way lower than the boys' net, and when we were talking to the boys, they told us that girls can't jump and that we aren't strong enough to get it over the net, and that's why our net is so low compared to theirs. After that, they proceeded to play on our net and make fun of it, saying, "Imagine playing on this net, it would be so easy." This made us both feel like we weren't good enough to play and that it wasn't difficult for us just because we have a lower net. The truth is that boys are usually taller than girls and are usually able to jump higher. That doesn't mean that they should be able to belittle us for something that we can't really fix.
There's still lots more to know revolving the subject of human rights. Some basic facts are that in 2011, the United Nations declared internet access as a basic human right, and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights is the most translated document in the world, and it is available in 370 different languages. A fact that we think is the most important is that 121 million children and adolescents have never had the chance to attend school or have been forced to drop out. Another fact that we think very strongly of is that violence against women and children remains one of the most pressing human rights issues around the world. In many countries, domestic violence isn't even a crime. A more recent fact is that according to a 2019 report from International Labour Organization, 152 million children are working in labor, and 7 out of 10 works in agriculture, such as cocoa fields in West Africa.
As we mentioned above, it is a basic human right to be able to marry. While as of 2017, being in a gay relationship is still a crime in 72 countries. In 8 of these countries, this crime is punishable by death. It wasn't until July 20th, 2005 that gay couples could marry in Canada. In 2014, it became legal in 19 more states. Also, in 2014, 13 states banned gay marriage through law, constitutional amendments, or both. In the United States, transgender people, especially those of color, have a high chance of facing violence and harassment. Within the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedom, Section 15 states that every single individual is to be considered equal regardless of religion, race, national or ethnic origin, color, sex, age, or physical or mental disability. But with all the discrimination surrounding the LGBT+ community, people aren't respecting these rights when they should be respected.
The Universal Declaration of Human Rights is a historic document which outlined the rights and freedoms that everyone is entitled to. It was the very first international agreement on the basic principles of human rights. This declaration has been the catalyst for improving human rights protections for groups like Indigenous people, disabled people, and women. It has made more than 80 international treaties, conventions, numerous regional conventions, and domestic laws. Nearly every state in the world has accepted this declaration.
We discussed a lot of information surrounding human rights, but the main thing that we want you to take away from this is that human rights are way more important than they may seem. We feel as though they aren't talked about nearly enough, and that's why many people aren't educated on them. It is very important that young people understand these rights and responsibilities. Human rights are an essential part of human rights. Without them, we wouldn't be living the way that we should be. That's why they are so important to each and every individual. By increasing your knowledge on human rights, it will allow you to make a difference in other individual lives and will allow you and everyone to be able to work towards a world full of peace and acceptance.
We really hope that after hearing what we had to say, people will be able to change their mindsets and make the world a better place for themselves and others.
Human rights! Thanks for watching!